Have you ever wondered if there was a real-life Robin Hood? Someone who stole from the rich and gave to the poor? Meet John Smith, a real-life Robin Hood who lived from 1830 to 1882. And his story is one of those strange but true tales that feel like it was taken straight out of a legend. Born into poverty, John's life took a dramatic turn when he decided to challenge the wealthy elite of his time. By the 1860s, his reputation as a man who outwitted the rich and helped the poor had spread far and wide. John Smith wasn't born into wealth, nor did he live a life of privilege. He came from humble beginnings, growing up in a small town where life was hard and opportunities were few. But something about the injustice he saw every day lit a fire in him. As he grew older, John saw how the rich lived in luxury while the poor struggled to survive. It bothered him deeply. He couldn't understand why so few had so much, and so many had so little. It wasn't fair, and John was determined to do something about it. But what could he do? He wasn't a man of influence, nor did he have any real power. What he did have, though, was courage and a knack for getting into places he wasn't supposed to be. So John Smith decided to take matters into his own hands. He became what some might call a thief. But John never saw himself that way. He believed he was simply redistributing wealth, taking from those who had more than enough and giving to those who had nothing. And the way he did it was bold. John would break into the homes of the wealthy, slipping past their guards and security as if it were child's play. He would take money, jewels, and anything of value. But instead of keeping it for himself, he would head straight to the poorest parts of town. There, he would hand out what he had taken to the needy. Sometimes, he would even leave bags of gold outside the doors of struggling families in the dead of night. He never asked for anything in return. For John, the joy came in knowing he had made a difference in someone's life, and word of his actions quickly spread. The poor loved him. He was their hero, their savior in dark times. The rich, on the other hand, despised him. They couldn't understand how he always managed to outsmart them, how he could steal so effortlessly without being caught. They began to call him the Phantom of Fortune, because no matter how many times they tried to trap him, John always slipped away, leaving no trace. But John's success as a modern-day Robin Hood wasn't without risks. The authorities were determined to catch him, and they put a price on his head. It wasn't long before bounty hunters and lawmen were hot on his trail. Still, John never gave up his mission. Even with the danger closing in, he continued his daring raids, helping the poor with every haul. People began to wonder how long he could keep it up. Could John really keep outwitting the law forever? The answer came one fateful night. John was in the midst of one of his biggest heists yet, targeting the mansion of a wealthy merchant who was notorious for exploiting the poor. He had slipped past the guards as usual and was filling his bag with valuables when something went wrong. One of the guards had spotted him. The alarm was raised, and John found himself surrounded. For the first time, it seemed his luck had run out. He was captured and thrown into prison, awaiting trial for his crimes. But even in captivity, John's legend only grew. The poor rallied around him, seeing him not as a criminal, but as a symbol of hope, a man who had dared to challenge the system. When John finally stood trial, the courtroom was packed. The wealthy were eager to see him punished, but the poor stood outside in protest, demanding his release. In a surprising twist, John's lawyer argued that he had not acted out of greed or malice, but out of a desire to help those in need. The jury was moved by his story, and in a decision that shocked everyone, John was sentenced to only a few years in prison rather than a lifetime. During his time behind bars, John became even more of a folk hero. Stories of his daring exploits continued to be told, and people speculated about what he would do once he was released. Would he continue his life of crime? Or would he retire quietly, satisfied with the impact he had made? No one knows for sure. When John was finally released from prison, he disappeared. Some say he fled to another country to live out his days in peace. Others believe he continued his work under a new name, once again stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. Whatever the truth, one thing is certain. John Smith's legacy as a real-life Robin Hood lives on. He is remembered not just for his crimes, but for the message he sent. That sometimes doing what's right means standing up against what's wrong, even if it means breaking the rules. His story remains a fascinating and strange piece of history, a reminder that the line between hero and villain isn't always as clear as we might think. We love hearing from our community. If you've enjoyed this weird and unusual story, please share your comments below. As always, take care of yourself, and thanks for watching.